And hello, one and all, your boy Daniel Gaiza back here once again for my weekly review for this week's edition of NXT. We're going to take a look at all of the offerings this week's developmental brand had to offer. And overall, I thought it was a mostly solid to average edition of NXT. I certainly didn't think it was as good as last week's edition, but there were a number of announcements that were made that had me looking forward to. Of course, we'll talk about how this week's edition of NXT kicked off. We're going to be focusing on heading into the build for NXT TakeOver Toronto, and I saw a number of little developments that I could see flourishing on the road to Toronto. So, while not, a standout edition of NXT, I thought it was a solid edition. Enjoyable hour of wrestling, that's the one nice thing. NXT doesn't overstay its welcome like a 3-hour Raw does, so I watched it, I enjoyed it, and now I'm here to talk about it with you guys. So remember to leave your comments down below on what you thought of this week's edition of NXT, and I will, of course, get back to your comments in due time. So we kicked off this week's edition of NXT. William Regal came. Well, actually, there was a pre-tape. William Regal was in the ring. He was talking about the historical significance last year of the first ever Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. And he once again confirmed that the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic is coming back, and it will return starting next week. And I later found out, I was reading on WrestleZone, that there are 4 confirmed teams, and I'll get into the one team later on because it plays into how the show went, but I'll name you 3 of the 4 teams that are competing. We have Cedric Alexander and Andrade Cien Almas. Almost botched that. So Cien Almas and Cedric Alexander, that's one. We have the Revival and Gargano and Ciampa. So really looking forward to the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Want to make a video later on, maybe next week, my prediction for my potential top teams to win that Classic. I thought it was one of the best things produced on WWE TV last year, and I'm glad they're keeping this an annual tradition in the fall. It really is something to look forward to, and once again, it honors the late, great, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, baby. So, rest in peace, Dream. We will never forget you, and this is just a truly great way to honor your legacy forever. So, great stuff here. Look forward to the tournament kicking off next week. So, how did we kick off this week on NXT? Well, there's only one number that I can describe it with. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. I'm almost there. Not 6, not 7, not 8, not 9, but 10. There we go. That's right. The perfect 10 Ty Dillinger kicked off this week's edition of NXT. I love this guy. The crowd loves him. He's pretty good wrestler. I love the whole perfect 10 thing. It's fun. It's catchy to chant. And, I'm glad to see that Ty's finally found the winning ways. He's got some wins under his belt, and his winning continued here. There was no 50-50 booking crap here. He picked up the win against Angelo Dawkins. Pretty standard match. Nothing really too much to say here. He picked up the win after hitting the tiebreaker for the win. But this was the interesting thing. Afterwards, he's walking back up the ramp. And then whose music would hit but glorious Bobby Roode would make his presence known. And he proposed an idea. He wanted to form a tag team with the perfect 10 Ty Dillinger. And, I know people were saying out there, well, they could see Dillinger versus Roode taking place in Toronto. I mean, they're both Canadian after all, And so that would be an interesting match. And maybe this is the way that we do get to that match, Dillinger and Roode competing in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Ty did accept Roode's challenge. I love the play off each other here. It just makes sense, with Roode's glorious, his egotistical personality, and then he said, well, you're not quite the perfect 10, but maybe if you team up with me, you'll be the perfect 10. So, I think this will be a fun team to watch. Eventually, they're going to turn on each other. Or they could go all the way. You don't know, and that's the thing I like about NXT. There's a number of different avenues that they could explore with this. I think it's just going to be a fun pairing to watch. So, like I said, Dillinger agreed, and they are officially entered in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. So already, this Classic is shaping up very well. Like I said, you got the Revival in there, you got Gargano and Ciampa, and the crowd was chanting Glorious 10. I kind of like that. If you guys can think of any other names for them, but yeah, this is going to be fun to watch, and I was really happy to see this happen. So, good stuff right here. We had what was supposed to be a scheduled match between the Elay brothers versus the Revival, but before the match could even begin, as the Revival were making their way down, Joe would appear and just lay waste to the Elay brothers. He would just go on a freaking rampage and clear house, and as he mentioned to William Regal the previous week, he will lay waste to the entire NXT roster. Joe will stop at nothing, and I love seeing a vengeful, furious, seething Samoa Joe, and I can't wait to see this Joe on the main roster after his eventual rematch with Nakamura. I'm telling you, SmackDown Live would be the perfect fit for Samoa Joe. So I'd love to see him on the blue brand, but this was good stuff. I look forward to the impending rematch between Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura. I'm wondering if it'll happen on NXT TV, or at the rate we're going, maybe it'll take place at the takeover event. My bet is on the latter, and then we'll see Joe transition to the main roster. Maybe at the Royal Rumble. Hey, who knows? But looking long term, I definitely could see that match taking place either on TV or at the takeover event. Either one I'm fine with, so, this was good stuff right here, just seeing Joe angry and seething. Because an angry Joe is a fun Joe to watch, so. We then had Ember Moon against Mandy Rose. Like I said, this match was really all about, Ember Moon, but Mandy Rose, she got in some offense here and there. I don't know, have we seen this girl before? I don't really remember seeing too much of her, but maybe we have. But Ember Moon, definitely, in my eyes, is the most viable challenger to Asuka's NXT Women's Championship, because at the moment, there are no, the women have to develop and be built up to eventually challenge Asuka, but, this match, it was what it was. Moon was able to hit that nice-looking, the O-face for the victory, so kind of like the flying stunner off the top rope. Really like that move. And, I'm not surprised here to see Ember Moon pick up the victory. Like I said, I do see her eventually on a showdown with Asuka, so we'll see where that goes. But, yeah, match was what it was. Nice to see Moon get the win. There was a nice backstage promo with Gargano and Ciampa talking about how important the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic is to them, and how they entered the company a year ago, and how this year they're going to win it, and also on their list that he had in front of him on his hand, they're going to finally beat the Revival and win the NXT Tag Team Championships. So yeah, I'm happy Gargano and Ciampa are in this tournament. I definitely could see them being an odds-on favorite to win, if not them, the Revival. I look forward to seeing how, I believe it's a 16 team bracket, if I'm not mistaken, so I look to see who fills out the remaining brackets for the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. And like I said, we'll get announcements later on social media within the week before the tournament kicks off officially next week on NXT. And it was announced that next week the tournament will kick off with it'll be Cedric Alexander and Cien Almas versus the Revival. Pretty sure it's the Revival. So yeah, that should be a good match to kick off next week's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. We then had the Authors of Pain versus two local guys. They pretty much beat the shit out of them. They picked the one guy up, threw him over the top rope like a sack of potatoes, and they hit the clothesline Russian leg sweep combo for the win. And afterwards, Paul Ellering gets on the mic and he says the first chapter was the arrival. The next chapter will unleash a plethora or pain, and that is all we need to know. So we kind of got a little bit more out of Paul Ellering. Still not completely sure, where they're headed. I do like the Authors of Pain. I like how they're building them up as a dominant, unstoppable force. But we needed to know really what's next for these guys. What's their ultimate goal? Obviously, probably to take the NXT Tag Team Championships. But it was nice to get some words this week out of Paul Ellering. William Regal was backstage. He said we didn't have an update on Shinsuke Nakamura's injury. And then Blake and Murphy would show up and say they want to be in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. But then, of course, they've been having issues with one another. I thought they were done. Apparently, they might be back together. They began bickering and arguing. So, For now, I could definitely see them being entered into the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Tournament. After this match, we had Asuka versus Liv Morgan. And this match really wasn't long at all. Asuka was able to make Morgan tap out pretty fast with the modified Rings of Saturn, it looked like, and Asuka gets the win. It was really only a matter of minutes, if that. So really quick work Asuka made of Liv Morgan, and then afterwards Asuka got on the mic. She says, no one is ready to face Asuka. And I agree, except outside of Ember Moon, really nobody is at Asuka's level. So it'll be interesting to see the direction that they go for future challengers for Asuka down the line and to see who will eventually take that title off of her. We then had an enjoyable main event match between Lince Dorado, who made his debut on NXT, versus Hideo Itami. Good stuff back and forth, nice action, good way to close out this week's edition of NXT. Like I said, really enjoy seeing the fire, the intensity that Itami has brought since he has returned from injury to NXT. There was a really nice move where Dorado attempted a handspring attack, but Itami caught him midair to put him into the go to sleep, but Dorado was able to get out of it. Dorado missed a shooting star press attempt, and Itami hit a boot to Dorado in the head, and then he finally hit the hesitation drop kick, picked him up for the GTS. 1, 2, 3, your winner is Hideo Itami. Afterwards, Austin Aries would sneak attack Itami and scurry out of the ring. So obviously this issue will continue to envelop between Aries and Itami. I look forward to their showdown that should take place at NXT TakeOver Toronto. And like I said, we are on the road. The build has slowly begun to take over Toronto. I really look forward to seeing what NXT has to come up for the show. For this week's edition of NXT, if I had to give it a grade, I'd give it a C+. It was a solid, average, enjoyable hour of wrestling. Wasn't the greatest, wasn't the worst. It was there. So look forward to next week, like I said, with the match number 1 in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Like I said, it'll be Cedric Alexander and Andrea Cien Almas versus the Revival. And like I said, I look forward to seeing who will round out the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic brackets with the announcements of the other matches, the other participants in that match as well, or in the tournament as well. So yeah, that should be good stuff. Like I said, I'm giving this week's edition of NXT a C+. Guys, let me know down in the comments section below what you thought of NXT. What did you like? What didn't you like? And yeah, that is it, guys. So thank you for joining me for my review for NXT. Remember to please click that like and subscribe button for more video content coming soon to this channel. Reminder, the next edition of the Guys of Wrestling Report will be back airing on this upcoming Sunday. It'll be Sunday, October 2nd, around 6 p.m. So mark your calendars for that. I will be bringing on special guest Nerd Coalition. We will run down all the major news and topics for this week in professional wrestling. Should have a lot of good stuff. Of course, run down our SmackDown talking points. And if he wants to talk about Raw, he can, but I really have nothing to add about that. So that is it, guys. Remember, 6 p.m., Guys of Wrestling Report, episode number 4. So I look forward to that. So until then, guys, take care and have a great rest of your day. Until then, I'll see you.